Hi everyone, I'm Chantelle. I just wanted to say a massive thank you to the Chester Youth Board and to the Chester team for inviting me here. I feel very honoured and very excited to be here at the first ever Youth Symposium. I've only been here for maybe about 2 hours, but I'm already feeling so inspired and so in awe of all of you. So I love everything about this. So that's why I'm beaming. If you just see me Cheshire Cat in the back, I'm just so inspired by you all. So thank you for having me. So we're not actually going on a walk in the woods, sorry to, dampen any expectations. But I thought I would call it a walk in the woods because it's about my journey into wildlife conservation sector. And it hasn't been a walk in the park, it's been more like a walk in the woods, though I'm not saying that a walk in the woods is a bad thing, but I work on a woodland restoration project, so I just couldn't resist the kind of correlation there. So that is why it's called a walk in the woods. It's a lot about me. I feel really cringy just talking about myself the whole time, but I'm just hoping that my story might inspire and you might find something that you can relate to within it. So, because those are cringy collages of me, which will be coming up. I'm not vain, it's just, so you'll focus on this and not on me. So the first shameless collage of myself, and it just has a kind of overview of some of the things that I've done. I've been in the conservation sector officially just over 2 years in my role. So I can never really pinpoint a moment in time where I was really inspired and fell in love with wildlife. I just feel like I've always had it. Some people have that moment on the beach with the shark and things like that, but I just feel like it's always just been innate. Although my mum might try and take credit because she gave me a sort of safari themed room when I was younger, and she kind of thinks that subliminally got me into it, which it might have done, so thank you, Mum. Mummy is over here.
Beaming as well, so proud to be the
She's my cheerleader. But I do remember that nature's always brought me a very unique sense of joy and peace. So I've always been obsessed with animals and people's pets, trying to adopt people's pets, take them in, steal them, that sort of thing. And I didn't have pets of my own, so that was kind of my thing. The one thing that I did have was snails under my bed in Tupperware at one point, and my mum got a bit of a fright when she came to clean out my room, so the snails had to go. But I've always just tried to stay very connected to nature. When I was younger, I used to sort of try and pinpoint what my talent was, and I used to think I was talentless, and try and shape that into a career. But the thing that kind of was just always there for me was this guiding love for wildlife. So I just tried to follow that throughout my academic career, and that's what kind of guided me. In secondary school, here we go. Oh dear, failed at the first hurdle here. There we go. In secondary school, I kind of immersed myself. I remember learning in religious studies about the cruelties of animal testing and the fur industries and the meat industries. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what is this? And it sort of led me to become an animal rights campaigner. And I used to go round to all the other year groups and give assemblies about the cruelties of these industries. And it was really important that I had one teacher who just kind of spurred me on. So for I don't know how to say, adults in the room, for the older generation in the room, if you are a teacher or you're a person of influence with young people, that nurturing that you have is so important, because it really can just mean the difference between someone pursuing their dreams and not. So I had a teacher that kind of spurred me on. And that's how I got into wildlife conservation. And from it, I was awarded an award from my local council for raising awareness with animal rights. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, this is a thing. This is cool. You can get recognition from this. You can actually recognise your efforts, and, you can start a ripple effect. From that, I became pescatarian, and now I'm vegan. And my family came along with me on that journey, and now a lot of my friends are vegetarians. So I just wanted to say to young people, you never know who is watching, and just by you acting and doing something by yourself, you just might inspire someone else. So just keep doing what you're doing, even if you think you're just kind of shouting into an empty room. Okay. So one of my favourite phrases is be the change that you wish to see in the world. And it just starts with one person. So I feel like for young people, a lot of the time it feels like we haven't got any power, that you're very much alone, that you sort of do reach these kind of ceilings where you can't go any further, but just keep pushing. And instead of trying to change others around you, if you change yourself, a lot of the time that does inspire other people. So I just wanted to encourage you to keep going in that respect. I feel really blessed that I had support from my mum and family to pursue my dreams to work in the wildlife conservation sector. So, like I said, for parents and guardians here, please do keep nurturing those dreams. And I'd come to my mum with like various like aspirations to work in the sector, vet one day or like a zookeeper the other, and it was like, whatever makes you happy, go for it. And that was really important for me. Another massive lesson that I learnt was that this was not a traditional career path. So if you want to become a doctor or a lawyer, you know, it's like you have to do this, this, this. But when I was researching back in sort of sixth form and secondary school, I just didn't know how to get there. So I had this like dream of like working in wildlife conservation, and I was just like, I don't know what the steps are. So I literally just had to follow my nose and try to stay connected wherever I could and find my path that way. So when others were doing work experience in retail, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go work at a canine hydrotherapy centre, which is one of the most amazing jobs I've ever had. It's basically dogs swimming in a pool and on a water treadmill. So it was things like that where it was just kind of clinging on to anything that I could to stay connected to wildlife. And so don't be afraid to be that oddball or the person that's doing something different from everyone else. In AS level biology, people were doing their projects on diabetes and cancer, and I had to get special permission to do mine on the decline of wild tiger populations. The teacher was like, okay, yeah, I'll just go and check that. But that seemed okay. So it's just keep pushing and being that oddball, because your uniqueness is your superpower. It's not necessary to have a degree, but I wanted to go to university. But when I hit sixth form, my mental health kind of, I guess, hit a bit of a wall, and because of that, my grades suffered. And I think it's really important that as young people we do talk about our mental health, because, you know, it has a massive effect. And I feel like one of the major positives of this COVID situation is that we are talking about our mental health a little bit more. So keep doing that, young people. But it kind of meant that my dreams kept getting further and further away, and I had to do this extra year in sixth form, which was just like so embarrassing and like the end of the world for me, because I was going to be behind my peers, and an extra year, you know, I was behind everyone. So it felt like the biggest thing at the time. But looking back now, yeah, everyone in university is so different ages, it just didn't make a difference at all. So when you're in one of those like crisis situations, young people, and it feels like, oh my gosh, my world is ending, you'll like, hindsight is a beautiful thing, because you'll find that helped to shape you, and everything happens for a reason. So yeah, one of my biggest lessons is that there's always more than one route to a destination, and it might look different to others, it might take more time than others, but you will get there. And especially in wildlife conservation, there's so many careers that you can do to contribute to the environment getting better. And in this social media world that we live in, it's so easy to compare yourselves, but really try not to, because, like I said, your uniqueness is your superpower. Okay, so a shameless video now. I studied animal behaviour and wildlife conservation in Wolverhampton, so I eventually got to university and I was like, yes, this is amazing. And I just remember being in lectures and being completely in awe of what I was learning and thinking, why is everyone not learning this? And just being super, super inspired. And although university was no walk in the park, definitely more like a walk in the woods, I graduated with a first in animal behaviour and wildlife conservation. Now, I sort of planned to do a master's, but at the end of my degree, I was so like fed up. I was like, I need to go into the sector now. I just want to do this. And it was like, came out of university, like, I'm ready for my job now, where is it? And Yeah, you sort of, you go out into the real world. A student, you're like wrapped in like bubble wrap. It's like everything's great, student discount, this, that. You come out of university, everything's gone. You're like, what? No job, no nothing. So it took me 3 years to get into the conservation sector. But I was really at a crossroads because I was ready to give up. I was like, this is too hard. I should have chose something different. This is a burden. This kind of purpose that I've had is more of a burden than it is a blessing at the moment. But eventually, and just as I was about to kind of give up on this dream, I was signed up to every job alert going. And I used to scour the job boards just like, while watching EastEnders, just like scouring them. And I came across the Keeping It Wild project. And the Keeping It Wild project is a National Lottery Heritage Fund funded project. It's part of the Kick the Dust scheme, and London Wildlife Trust run it. So they have 5 different strands. One is the Young People's Forum, another is the traineeships, the Wild Action Days, the Wild Action Programme, and the Social Action Projects. So the first thing that I came across was the traineeship. And this was during a time where I'd quit my job at a call centre because I was absolutely miserable, much to like people's disapproval. You tell people I just quit my job without going on to anything else, and it was like, oh, you shouldn't do that. So a lot of this was about being brave. Life is too short to be miserable in a job. I'm not telling you to quit your job, so don't. But I'm just saying, do not be miserable for too long. So I was literally, ready to give up, and there were all these amazing internships that were coming up that I really wanted to do, but they were like 3 days a week expenses, and that was it. And I was like, I can't afford to do that. I can't afford to give up my time, for free. I had like a lot of commitments, so for me that was a huge barrier. Was I couldn't get that experience, that practical experience that I needed because I couldn't afford to. So time is money, people. So I didn't see a lot of internships that were offering like a substantial something that could benefit me and keep me living, I guess. So when I saw the traineeship, and it's this 3-month practical conservation traineeship, and you're paid, and I was like, what? That is incredible. Not only that, but it was the Keep It Wild project it aims to inspire at least 600 young people between the ages of 11 to 25 from backgrounds currently underrepresented in the sector. So it helps them to discover and share their experiences of London's natural spaces and just trying to spark and ignite that love for wildlife. So it struck me because it was like, okay, you've identified there's an issue within the sector, and you're doing something meaningful about it. So it was just completely unique, and I jumped at the chance. I first started in the Young People's Forum, which is a space for young people, a lot like I've heard today about the youth boards, for young people to voice their opinions and to contribute to marketing and comms, and to talk to the trustees and try to shape the direction in which these organisations are going. Because there is a lot of gatekeeping in the sector where, you've got these organisations that are kind of monopolising the space. And it's something that I've never understood. It's like we're all working towards the same aim. Why is it like competition? So it was kind of like a massive kind of like gold pot seeing this. So I did this traineeship for 3 months, and I was shadowing a project in South London called the Great North Wood Project. And just as that was coming to an end, my traineeship, the person that I was shadowing went on to another job, and I applied for the job, didn't think I was going to get it, had loads of support, and I got it in the end. So I went from being a trainee on the Great Northwood Project to then being the Great Northwood Project Officer alongside a co-project officer. And I just remember it being completely surreal, going from a job that was making you completely miserable to going to a job where you literally have to pinch yourself because you're getting paid to walk through the woods and, do like practical conservation was just completely surreal. So young people that are aiming for something like that, I know someone said they wanted to be a ranger, keep going, keep going, you will get there. So currently I am the Great Northwood Project Officer. So a little bit about the project. As I said, it's a woodland restoration project in South London. It's a 4 to 6 year project. I say that because it was meant to come to an end this year. We've got extra funding to continue. So we're finishing in 2023. And we have 22 publicly and privately owned sites that we work on. So I lead conservation days with volunteers and also run community engagement groups, events, to, I guess, inspire people and to reconnect the Great Northwood in their minds. It's called a living landscape project because it's not just about single sites, not just about individual sites. We're trying to reconnect it, and that's exactly what we're trying to do in the environment as a whole, is working with large landscapes. So in urban conservation, that's sort of a wall that you come up against, because in other places in countryside you've got large expanses of land that you can conserve. With urban, it's about trying to connect those little fragments in any way that you can. So that's what's quite unique about this project. And we have support from funders, etc., etc. Just so you know what I'm talking about, this is a map of what the Great Northwood would have looked like in the 16th century. So if you're not familiar with London, you might be familiar with the River Thames. So it just sits below the River Thames and goes down south to London. So it was an ancient landscape of woodland and wooded commons that once covered the high ground. And you can see it's all connected, all very green, and it has this really rich history. You have figures like Margaret, the Queen of the Gypsies, she was known as, who used to live in the woods. Sam, the woodland hermit, who used to live in the woods. They would be grazing pigs, and it had a massive woodland economy. There's a book that's just been written about the Great Northwood called The Wood That Built London, because a lot of the timber was used to build ships, and for the coal industries, and for leather making as well. So once the Industrial Revolution came about, unfortunately all of that kind of dissolved, and this is more like what the Great Northwood looks like today. It's fragmented, it's not as green, it was sectioned off and sold off, so unfortunately now we're left with isolated pockets. So we work to try and join those up any way that we can. But the Great Northwood is very much still alive in small woodlands, parks, cemeteries, sports grounds, railway embankments and gardens, which are really rich with wildlife. And it's amazing to see people's faces when they come to South London and go to one of these places and they haven't been before, and it's like, South London's got woodlands, and you're like, yes, yeah. You can like step off a busy road and you're in a woodland, and it's absolute magic. So if you're ever in South London, hit me up and I will give you a tour, because it's absolutely amazing. So my favourite part of the job, and it was something that really surprised me, because I kind of got into that space where it was like, I don't want to deal with people, I just want to deal with animals and wildlife, because people, like, ugh. But then I kind of discovered that actually I really like engaging with people, and it's super important, it turns out. So a lot of my job is, like I said, leading conservation groups. But I did notice that there was a trend. It was like the same sort of people were coming to volunteer, white, older men and women, and it was about how can we get more young people and people from more diverse backgrounds, people with disabilities, etc., to join in. So that's been one of the challenges, and one that is actually written into the Great Northwood Project, is that we need to connect with diverse communities, because we span 5 South London boroughs, and it's like, if we're not connecting with young people or diverse communities, then what are we really doing? So like I said, it's not been all a walk in the park. So the challenges that I face along the way. So the first one, and like I said, I only sort of started to notice this when I was kind of actually in the conservation sector. When I was working my way up, I didn't really notice that there was a lack of ethnic diversity. It was only kind of when I got into the sector and I was like, this is a bit strange. I'm like the only black person in the room a lot of the time, or the only person of colour. So you sort of look around and you kind of feel like maybe you're not meant to be in this space. And I was one of 3 black people on my university course, and there were no black professors or teachers. So when I looked back, I was thinking that's an issue, because then that links into lack of representation. And one of the analogies that I like to give for representation is that when you go to the toilet, if it was just a blank door, you'd be like, am I allowed in here? Is this for me? But when you've got, signs on the doors, you know that that's a place for you. So that's why representation is so important, because it says to you, you belong here. So when you don't see yourself represented, it's like, I'm not too sure if this is for me. So representation was a massive thing for me. And even growing up, David Attenborough, Stephen Backshall, Andrea Marshall, all of those greats were amazing, but none of them looked like me. So it's kind of like this faraway dream that kind of made the faraway dream even further, because it's something so unusual anyway, but then it's like, I'm not sure if I can actually do that because no one looks like me there. And also, I didn't know that there were other people of colour that were also interested in conservation. And it was only until I got into social media that it was like, whoa, there's other people that are doing this, young people that are so super inspiring that I could have been friends with this whole time and not felt like such a loner. So, it's giving those people the spotlight and letting other people know that you're not alone. This then, I sort of touched on it earlier about the disparities in wealth and resources and access as well. So when I was in university, there were certain trips that people were going on, like to South Africa and to India, that gave them a certain edge when employers looked and it's like, oh, you've been to South Africa, or you've been to India, that I couldn't do, or a lot of people couldn't do because they couldn't access that, they didn't have the financial resources. So you're already disadvantaged. So it's kind of about how do we break down those barriers to allow more young people, more people from diverse communities into the sector. How do we help people? So I'm not sure if anyone's seen this sort of little thing before, but it's kind of a really great illustration of sort of inequality. So you've got this person over here is getting all the apples and this person over here isn't. And then you've got equality, and it's like you both give them the ladder and then they can both get up on the ladder, but still the person over there can't reach it because the tree's lent in this way. And then you've got equity. And equity over equality any day is better because you can customise the tools for the person that needs it. So yeah, they can reach the apples, but still this person on this side has got more apples. So what we really need in the sector is justice and an overturning of systems to completely change it so that you lent the tree up and now they're both getting equal opportunities. So it's about how can we actually overturn the systems so that more young people and more people from diverse communities can access these opportunities. So I just thought I would tell you how I've kind of tried to find my way and joined up with organisations, and they're here today. So I volunteer with Action for Conservation. So that's one of the ways that I try to stay connected with young people is by kind of volunteering with organisations that are doing the work already and that are amazing examples of it. I mean, they're here today. It was the first talk that I heard and I literally was just like, oh my gosh, they're amazing. And any time that I go to an Action for Conservation webinar, anything, I just leave feeling really inspired. So Action for Conservation, if you don't know, you guys, hopefully I'm not gonna mess this up, but they're a charity that aims to build the next generation of nature conservationists, and they empower and inspire young people through free nature residential camps, which are incredible. So already then they're breaking down that barrier, they're offering this for free and they're giving it to young people, and they are really rich programs that are like, this is free, this is amazing. So it just takes, that extra bit of thinking outside the box. How can we break down these barriers? They also work within schools and are influencing organisational practices at the highest level. So organisations that are struggling to connect with young people or diverse communities, you don't have to create a whole new system, just look to organisations that are already doing the work. What are they doing? Let's talk. So that's one way that we can break down those barriers. Another organisation that I'm involved with is Heal Rewilding. So they are a very new charity and they're about 1 year old, and just literally as they were starting, they were putting out this call for a youth advisory panel, and I was like, wow, before they've even got a site, before they've even formed their trustees, they're looking for young people. And for me that was a massive blinker. It was like, wow, I want to be involved with this, because they're looking to young people first, and that's exactly what we should be doing. Not to say that the responsibility is young people, because this climate crisis was not created by young people, but it's come on our shoulders now, unfortunately. So it's like, what can we do? And these brilliant minds that are in this room, for instance, need to be heard. So the HEAL Future Advisory Panel feeds into the Board of Trustees, and we shape the policies. So one of the first policies was their Equality, Diversity, Inclusion policy, which again was like, okay, that's one of the first policies that they're doing. That's incredible. And once you have EDI, you need it to be the foundation, because it has to feed into everything. It can't be the work you're doing and EDI over here. It has to feed into everything that you do. So that was why I wanted to join up with HEAL. Also, they aren't afraid to be challenged. I remember looking at their board of trustees, and I sort of wrote an email to Jan, who's like the co-founder, and I said, I don't think your board of trustees is very representative of young people, of diverse communities. And she was like, it's absolutely not, you're right. And then within like a month, we were having talks with someone who can help diversify the board. So it was like, don't be afraid to be challenged, don't be afraid to be wrong. In this culture that we're in, it's like you might be cancelled, or you might be. I feel like organisations are very scared to do anything because you're scared to be wrong. But don't be scared to be wrong. Just have a youth board that you can sound things off, and then hopefully you're not going to make huge mistakes. So that was what drew me to HEAL. And also about HEAL, sorry, just going back. This concept of rewilding was very, very new for me, and it's like this buzzword in the conservation sector at the moment. It's like, what even is rewilding? And it's got so many different definitions. But one thing that I kind of got from rewilding was that it's this countryside thing. It's not for urban areas. It's this very middle class thing. But what HEAL are trying to do is make it into something that is accessible for people. So they're trying to fundraise money to found a site and find a site that is within an hour max of a city, and they're thinking of all these ways of how they can get city kids into this space. So that's one of their prerequisites for finding a site, and I just thought that was really important, because rewilding doesn't have to be this far away thing. A lot of the aspects of woodland restoration that we do within my job is rewilding too. So it's about just breaking the mould, really. Another thing that I find is really beneficial is joining up with spaces that are creating safe spaces for marginalised groups. So you might have heard of Flock Together. It was founded by Nadeem and Ollie, who are absolutely incredible, and they've just been everywhere. And that is one of the things that is amazing about them. So it's a bird watching group for people of colour. And you don't have to be an avid bird watcher, you can just kind of turn up. But they've made it their mission to be literally everywhere, to be completely visible and be in spaces that are normally white dominated. So the first walk that I went to was in Surrey, and I just rounded the corner in Surrey, and there was this group of people of colour, about 40 of us, and I was like, this is insane. I've never been in a space full of people of colour out in a woodland just walking through, and we'd get stopped. Oh my goodness, what are you guys doing here? And it's if you saw a group of white people with binoculars, you kind of wouldn't stop them because they look like they're bird watching. But because it was a group of people of colour with binoculars, it's this is so strange. And what Flock Together are trying to do is make it so it's not strange, make it so that when you see a group of people of colour going through the woodlands with binoculars, it's completely normal. So they are tackling representation within the sector, which is insane and absolutely incredible. And they also have just founded their Flock Together Academy, so they're getting young people at that age where they kind of fall off of, that love for the wildlife because priorities get in the way or it's not cool anymore. So they're trying to get into education now, so that's super, super important and a reason why I absolutely love Flock Together. And there's similar initiatives, Black Girls Hiking, and all sorts of initiatives like this that are coming up, and they can be quite controversial because people are like, oh, well, you're excluding us, this is not right, why are we segregating? But when, like I said, it goes back to representation. When you go into a space where you kind of feel alone it can be very, very daunting. So these safe spaces are almost like entry level into the sector. You've got people who might not even birdwatch before coming into these spaces, so they are really, really important. And then my role at London Wildlife Trust. So what I try to do within London Wildlife Trust, and something that I think is really important, and it's quite difficult when you are part of like a marginalised group, you kind of feel this like responsibility to kind of like open the door for other people, and absolutely, but you know, that responsibility can be quite a burden. But I kind of do feel like, you know, you do need to open that door for others. So I'm on the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Board in London Wildlife Trust, and it's been amazing to see what an organisation like this is doing to include and break down those barriers. So we've been looking at salaries, we've been looking at getting rid of unpaid internships, getting rid of job descriptions that require a degree when you really don't need a degree. So just sort of things like that we're just tackling one by one, and that are really, really important and making a huge difference. Also part of the peer support network for people of colour. So I'm just trying to be everywhere really, got like loads of like hands in like different pies. But yeah, just it's really easy to become pressured and very like anxious. So sometimes I have to be reminded that just by being in this space and sort of just going about your day to day, that is enough. So don't feel like you have to be doing something every day, because it can get a lot. And also I'm doing a similar thing to Flock Together. I'm just trying to be visible everywhere so that little girls, you know, that look like me or anything who can relate to me can look up and go, oh my goodness, she's doing that. That's inspiring. And I think it would be so incredible as a young me to see someone like me doing this. So that's kind of what keeps me going. So I just try to be everywhere I can really. And yeah, I'm just trying to open up doors for young people to come in and take up these positions and take up space. Take home messages. So I would say that you make your actions count, big or small. Anything to leave this world in a better place than you found it. So, like I said, don't feel like you have to do something huge, you know, making your own youth panel or something like that. Anything tiny that you can do in day to day is just something. And it's very, very easy to become overwhelmed in this current situation that we're in. But just take it easy and just do what feels right to you. Follow that voice and use your determination to keep pushing through those barriers. I feel like if I'd let those barriers stop me, I probably wouldn't be here today, but I just had to just keep pushing because I knew it was bigger than me. Your uniqueness is your superpower, and the world is in this state because there's the same thinking, same people, so we need fresh perspectives. So don't be afraid to be that different person and to bring something completely different and overturn the system. That's what this sector is waiting for and what it needs. In the same vein, just be bold and brave, and it's not always easy. Sometimes it's exhausting, and sometimes it's really scary to step into spaces that normally exclude you. But take up space and challenge wrongs. So if you see something that's not right, speak up. And it's hard, get people together, but by speaking up, we can keep hammering at this issue. We're more powerful together, of course, so seek out like-minded people, join youth panels, join groups, and don't feel so alone, because I guarantee you there's someone who feels exactly the same way that you do, and there's so many young people that care, and this is a testament to it today. And if you can and where possible, hold that door open for other young people. So if you get into a space, maybe you get to be the CEO of a company one day, what can you do then to ensure that young people can then trace your steps and get into the same positions as you? And I think that's something that's been neglected. It's often, you know, people get into these spaces, they shut the door and it's like, no, I'm in this space now and no one else is getting in here. But it's like, no, leave that door open and welcome people in. And the last one is rest and find hope. It can be so overwhelming and really depressing in this current state that we're in. And like I said, it shouldn't rest on our shoulders, but it has. But do take rest and do find hope in little things. There's like things that you can go on to where you see good news instead of all the bad news. And I really wish that news outlets would give us some good news sometimes. So yeah, just rest and also find hope. And then just leave you with one of my favourite quotes, which is, "It always seems impossible until it's done," which sometimes kind of are like, what does that even make sense? But when you when you think something's impossible, it's like for instance, doing this today, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so anxious, da 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 da. But at the end of it, I'm gonna be like, oh, I did this today. So just think of that end goal, keep that in mind. Even if you don't know how you're going to get there, just like this, I didn't know how I was going to get here, but somehow I muddled my way here. So it always seems impossible until it's done. So keep the hope and keep inspiring. And thank you so much for listening today.